Today's episode will provide valuable information about mental health and available support, but is for informational purposes only. The content of this show is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek advice from a mental health professional or other qualified health provider if you have questions. If you are in crisis or if you think you may have an emergency, call your doctor or 911 immediately. If you are having suicidal thoughts, call 1-800-273-TALK to talk to a skilled, trained counselor at a crisis center in your area at any time. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Boss Radio Live with NJ. I am so happy about today's show because I think it is much needed. It is about a topic that has been coming up more and more often. It's about mental health. So today we will be talking about the truth about mental health with some amazing guests. It's going to be a great show, everyone. Be sure to share this episode. Make sure you share the episode. It's Boss Radio Live with NJ, your three-dimensional podcast. Baltimore, Maryland. I love my city. Wow. You have to have balance.
Mother's Day extravaganza event being held at LUC North Button Culver.
Come meet me today at the Spirit Fest. I want to hear what you have to say. So again, welcome to Boss Radio Live with NJ. I'm your host, NJ. And again, today's topic is about a gravely important topic, which is mental health and specifically our young people. Because this topic, although it has been a taboo topic, people don't want to talk about it. They don't want to address it. I think that we really need to address it. And so we have several special guests on the show today to do that. Again, you don't want to miss this show. You don't want anyone who needs it to miss the show. So be sure to share the episode. But first, a little more about our guest today. In our city and all of the country, there is a growing problem that is affecting our children. 1 in 6 youth, 6 to 17, experience a mental health disorder every year, and 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses begin by age 14. But today, we will pull back the curtain and talk about the truth about mental health. On today's show, we welcome Kerry Graves, Executive Director of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Metropolitan, Baltimore, who's been operating since 1983. Qiana Howell, a therapist, author, and founder of Empowered to Heal. She has an MS in counseling psychology and has completed several professional training courses in the mental health field. Qiana has provided therapy and case management services with various behavioral health organizations. And we welcome special guest Stephani Schaffer, who will be sharing her personal journey with mental illness. Our young people can overcome. They can thrive with our support. There is hope. So everyone, please welcome to the show the Executive Director of NAMI Metro Baltimore. I'm trying to keep that straight. NAMI Metro Baltimore to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Hi, Kerry. It's so wonderful to have you on the show today, along with a couple of other very wonderful guests. We are,
Absolutely.
yes, we're also welcoming Qiana Howell, who is a therapist. Hello, Qiana. Hi, welcome to the show. And finally, we are welcoming Stephani Schaffer, who is here to share her personal journey with us. Welcome to the show, Stephani.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
I am so glad to have each of you on the show today. And I really want to jump right into it. As I said several times when I was introing the show, this is a very important topic. Definitely need to discuss it. And so I really want to get started with you, Kerry, just to tell us a little more about NAMI's mission here in Baltimore.
Sure, absolutely. So we are the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I am the executive director of the Metropolitan Baltimore affiliate. So we serve Baltimore City and Baltimore County. And NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization. And so we provide education, support, and advocacy for both individuals who are living with a mental health condition, as well as for their family members and for the community overall. We want to build awareness and break down stigma so that individuals who are affected by mental illness can build better lives. And we do that through education classes, support groups, and stigma reduction programs throughout the community.
That is amazing. And it's definitely needed here. So you talked about some of the things that you do, and I was on the website, of course, looking it over, and you have some amazing support groups. Can you tell us a little about that? How you provide that support? Yeah,
absolutely. So what is unique about NAMI is that our programs are non-clinical in nature. So they are meant to complement any treatment that a participant might be receiving. But our programs are led by individuals who have lived experience. They are individuals who have been there themselves. They have walked in your shoes. And so they lead by sharing their experience to help others in their journey. So our support groups, we have support groups for individuals who are living with a mental health condition, and then we have support groups for family members who are caregiving for someone with a mental health condition. And those groups are led by individuals who are either living with a mental health condition or family members who have caregived for someone with a mental health condition. So again, they really share their personal experience to help others. And that goes the same for all of our classes that we do, our public presentations. It's why we invited Stephani to be here today to share her personal story. We want to make sure that, what is so hard about mental illness is that you can't just look at someone and say they've got a mental health condition. And that makes it hard for us as a society to define. And so we try to put a face there and show that there's help, there's hope, there's recovery at the end of this, and that there's, that light at the end of the tunnel, and that, individuals with a mental health condition can live very healthy, active lives and be wonderful members of the community and members of our community. And so we want to show that through our volunteers, through the family members that serve for NAMI Metro Baltimore.
That's amazing. That's an amazing mission, and that's amazing work that you all are doing. So thank you definitely for that. It's much needed in Baltimore. And as you mentioned, Stephani, if you want to just tell us a little bit about your experience with being a volunteer with NAMI.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I'm actually I haven't been volunteering that long. I started in Carroll County where I moved from. But apparently I guess I'm doing very well. They've been, I help with their presentations, In Our Own Voice, which is for adults, and Ending the Silence, which is for youth and like staff and family members of youth, with mental health difficulties. And both of them, I share my personal experience with my mental illness to get that feeling it's okay to get help. You're not alone in this fight.
Great. That's amazing. And I want to get a little more into, your personal journey with that as well. But first, I wanted to go to Qiana. And so you have had experience counseling and treating young people with mental health disorders. If you could just tell us some of the issues and things that you have come across. What's been the most prominent, disorder or issue that you've seen?
Yes, I've worked with youth as young as 8 years old, so about age 17 as far as those in the elementary through high school age. What is most prominent, reported even by them specifically, is their battle with anxiety and depression. And then a lot of times around the age of 12 and 13, that for some of them, it segues into addiction. Addiction of substance use, alcohol. And I know it's interesting to say, how are they able to get access to, alcohol or marijuana or some of the other drugs? But they have taught me a lot in how they gain access to those substances at such a young and early age. But definitely in the middle school age bracket is definitely where it's really prevalent, where depression and anxiety is highly reported among our youth.
Wow. That it's a bit disheartening, but at the same time, I think we do need to put that out there, because who would think that a middle school child would be having those sorts of issues? And one of the things I wanted to talk about with you is trauma. And I know that's something that you help people with as well. So as far as trauma, what role does that play in exacerbating that mental health disorder, or is there a correlation?
Oh, I believe it's a high correlation. Even when people try to deny trauma as being a part of their history, one of the things I always educate both youth and adults is that we've all have had some traumatic experience. Again, our level of response to a different traumatic event will vary, but the reality is we have all endured some level of trauma that has affected our mental and emotional well-being. And so it's how we choose to respond to those traumas that determines how severe mental challenges can become. So, again, if you lost someone to death, or if you've actually encountered some level or some form of abuse, whatever it may be, a sexual assault, car accident, different things, witnessing public violence or mass violence, having those types of encounters, how we respond to those things determine whether or not it segues into substance use, other forms of addictions that may develop, mild to severe depression, anxiety, which can lead to, a series of panic attacks, just different things that can, people can encounter. And so that's something, again, unfortunately, a lot of our youth tend to experience, because a lot of our traumas, unfortunately, can date back to our childhood and what we were exposed to either in our home or around the people that our parents may have, given us access to. So it just really depends on the experience. But yeah, it's definitely a key factor to consider. So even when we do assessments in the mental behavior field, we do try to identify what the trauma history consists of, to understand what it is that client is in need of when it comes to why they may be suffering or struggling with depression or anxiety, if they need to be diagnosed with PTSD and so forth.
And that's a big one. I did some work with an organization that worked with veterans, and we really delved, of course, into the PTSD there. But that is something that can be across the board with any trauma. And so a lot of people don't even understand that and can't accept that they are having PTSD over a traumatic event. So, and speaking of traumatic event, we're kind of in one now, which has definitely been having some effect. So with the pandemic, many of our young people experience depression. They experience a lot of fear, stress. And so, Kerry, if you could, is there any data that NAMI has been gathering on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a few pieces here to touch on. I want to bounce back to this sort of, treating young and the importance of that. We know that only about 41% of individuals with a mental health condition actually seek treatment, which is incredibly low. And if you compare that to any other physical health condition, boy, you would be shocked, right? If I told you that only 41% of individuals with cancer sought treatment, you would be floored. So we should be surprised by that number. And what that means is that for our youth, the consequences of this untreated mental illness are even more severe. I mean, we're talking about over 1/3 of students with mental health conditions that are ages 14 to 21 will drop out. It's the highest dropout rate of any disability group. So now we're talking about compounding that with a pandemic, right? And we've got students that already potentially don't have a great home life, and the school is a sort of respite for them. And now, they are removed from their friends, from, that sort of safe atmosphere that they had at school. Their routine is disrupted. I mean, it is incredibly challenging. And so NAMI did just conduct a mood disorder survey. And what that survey showed is that young adults with a mood disorder are having a much harder time than adults when it comes to addressing their mental health. And it really showed that, that they've got poorer mental health, they've got difficulties in accessing affordable treatment, they're battling more stigma. It really, I think the pandemic for all of us, right, has tested our mental health, but young people have been acutely affected by barriers to care already. They've got more judgment and more stigma from, their friends and potentially even their family. And so I think that we can't really, underscore enough, the importance of getting that treatment early. Because as Qiana said, a lot of this starts very, very young and only compounds from there as they grow.
Wow. And I guess, are there like specific issues because I know NAMI is a national organization, but are there specific issues that are affecting Baltimore's young people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this goes back to what Qiana said as well about experiencing trauma. So what we know is that research has shown that adverse childhood experiences, which we refer to as ACEs, contribute to negative physical and behavioral health outcomes, and that experiencing 6 or more ACEs can reduce life expectancy even by upwards of 20 years. And so we know that in Baltimore, 42% of adults have experienced 3 or more ACEs, and that's compared to 24% statewide. So just in our city alone, that's a much higher number. And we also know that prior to the pandemic, the rates of youth suicide in Baltimore were higher than the rest of the state. And so I think that, we do have a lot of trauma in our community, and it is something that we certainly need to address and need to start with our youth, because again, there are protective factors that will help a young adult, a child, if they have a protective factor in their life, like a teacher or a coach that really takes them on, that can help offset, I don't know if that's the right word, but some of these ACEs. It can, help certainly later in life. And so, exposure to poverty and racism directly contributes to ACEs. And we know that in Baltimore, we've got a lot of individuals living below the poverty line when it's compared to the state or even to the country. And so that is certainly an issue that we need to deal with here.
Wow. These stats are staggering, literally staggering. And it's very upsetting when you're looking at the local area specifically too. So you were talking about having someone like a teacher. You were talking about the stress and everything with school. And so I want to go there because the kids recently, on a large scale, went back to school. And so actually on the NAMI site, I actually was looking at an interview with a principal that you all did recently, and he was talking about how they're dealing with stress and anxiety with the students since they've come back to school. So I guess how important is it for the schools to have some sort of plan in place to really deal with mental health with our young people?
It's incredibly important. I mean, again, these kids, unfortunately, many of our kids aren't receiving that kind of care at home that they really need. And if they are experiencing trauma at home, the school is a safe place for them. And it may be the healthiest place in their life. And so if we aren't looking at all of the issues that are surrounding our kids, if we're only focused on their education and not on their mental and physical health alongside of their education, then we're failing, right? I mean, we're not going to raise healthy adults just by teaching them math. We have to be able to address their mental health needs as well. And that's challenging, right? Because we also know that our public schools are underfunded. They don't have the resources. I mean, there are, shared social workers. If they are lucky enough to have a psychiatrist, it's usually shared between multiple schools. Resources are just really, really slim. And so I think that our schools are really trying their hardest, especially coming out of this pandemic, to figure out how do they address the mental health needs that are overwhelming right now for their kids. At NAMI Metro Baltimore, as Stephanie mentioned, we provide a program called Ending the Silence, which is meant to reduce stigma within the school and educate both parents and teachers on how to navigate mental health concerns with the kids, and then for the kids, how to talk to each other, how to recognize the signs and symptoms in your peers, how to talk to your friends and family about mental health. Again, opening those lines of conversation. We have to normalize the conversation, and you'll hear me say it over and over, but I think that is what is so incredibly important, is that we need to feel comfortable talking about our mental health the same way we would talk about our physical health.
Absolutely. Stephanie, did you want to add something? Because I know you've been dealing directly, with the young people. So did you want to add something there?
Doing the Ending the Silence presentations, obviously we don't continue with these youth, which is one of the things you always want to see, like how they do afterwards. However, there's recognitions, their questions are the most important part to me, because I hear them receiving it. And when they ask their questions, I know that they either know someone, and it's like so abundant, and so abundant in school. So even if it's not them, they know, like their best friend could be the individual, but their questions tell me it's having impact, and that's what matters.
Wow. Well, I'm really glad that there's a program that can address that with our young people in the school. And so, do you remember, Stephanie, at what point you yourself realized that, you might need some support with your mental health?
I think I kind of always knew. I mean, a lot of my difficulties showed up at like 8 years old. But I think there was a difference between knowing and feeling comfortable to ask for that help directly. I think it was, the stigma we're talking about. I was so afraid to ask for help. And that was probably like when I was 14 years old. I went to a youth Christian convention, and the speaker, Reggie Dabbs, who's still speaking in public schools, which is so cool. He just he spoke about, we mattered, we were, worth it. And I just felt so worthless at the point. I didn't think I was worth getting help either. And he had us before the break or whatever, he told us to bring an item that night, and it was supposed to be representative of something we were holding on to that was holding us back from taking care of ourselves or something. And I had been self-harming at the time, and not telling anybody. So I had the sharp object I had, and I brought it back that night, and he had us throw them in a trash can. And, that was such a symbolic thing for me, because I could just throw it away and decide to get help. And I think the other time that I changed how I got help was when I was 25. I had a psychiatrist who, I had trauma history, but I hadn't been really talking about it at this point. And he had said, you're never going to get better until you work on this. And he wasn't trying to be mean or anything, but it really hit me. And I had a reaction in the sense of my anxiety went through the roof. And as I was trying to cover the flashbacks and everything, I was literally beating my head against the wall in the unit, and they had me in a safety spot. They were really getting hard on the psychiatrist for saying something, but I actually, of course, stood in his defense, and I said, no, it wasn't that I couldn't hear this. It was that I needed to hear this. And I'm trying to do what he said. And I ended up sharing my story with him, which was very interesting because he was very hard of hearing. So I had to yell my trauma story to him, which became strangely therapeutic. So after that, I became much better about talking about it, and, as well with my therapist that I had been seeing for a while at that point. So.
Wow. And just when you were talking, I heard you mentioning the struggle, just trying to voice what was going on with you when you were younger. And recently I saw, I don't know why these things have just been coming up a lot. I think it's because of the pandemic and everything that's been going on, but I've been catching some really great interviews and all of that. And I saw an interview actually with Dr. Campo, and he's like the VP of Psychiatric Services at Kennedy Krieger. And I'm loosely paraphrasing here, so don't get me on the wording. But he was indicating basically how there's been a great increase that they're seeing now in the suicide rate. And he was really asking parents to ask the hard questions, to approach, their kids. Don't be afraid to even ask them if they're thinking about suicide. Ask them how they're doing on a daily basis, just to check in with them. And so that had me thinking, like with you particularly, how instrumental, what role did your parents play in, you or your family play in you receiving help?
I think it's, of course, important to realize that, what do they always say? There's not like a textbook to being a parent, and there's not a textbook to be having a kid with mental health difficulties. And, there is that that fear of like, if I ask this, what's going to happen? So I would say at first, my parents, and also, one of the questions they asked is, do you have a family history of mental illness? And we really didn't. Not that, it was diagnosed or treated or anything like that. So my parents didn't know what to look for. I think things like ending the silence becomes really important, as a reflection back now, because they teach you those warning signs to look for in your child. I think if they had something like that back then, it would have been super helpful. I would say that they got better over time. They began to ask questions like, do you feel safe? Do you need help? What kind of help? How can I help you? And also the physical signs matter too. I had chronic hives when I was in middle school, and, all the testing and everything, allergy testing, they could never find a source. And it came to figure out that it had to do with my suppressed anxiety, with all my trauma history and everything. I was suppressing everything I had gone through, everything I emotionally felt, and it came out anyways through chronic urticaria.
Wow, that is amazing, and actually very important to note that mental health problems, conditions, stress, anxiety can boil over into physical sickness. Wow. Okay. Did you have something to add, Kurt? You look like you wanted to say something.
No, I totally agree. I mean, I do think that families this isn't natural, right? I mean, it's just, we really do need more training and more public awareness on what the signs and symptoms are, because a lot of times the symptoms are physical. And even primary care doctors miss those symptoms because and when you're talking about kids, some of the common symptoms are things like sleep loss or difficulty concentrating or changes in eating habits. Well, come on. I mean, what kid from like 14 to 21 can you say doesn't have some of those things? It's very hard, I think, to pinpoint and say this is a mental health condition versus this is just my kid being a kid. And so parents really do need more training and more education around recognizing these signs and symptoms, and not stopping there, but also then need to know what to do about it and having those difficult conversations. I mean, certainly the interview that you referenced with Dr. Campo is exactly right. I mean, you need to be very direct with your child and ask, are you thinking about suicide? Do you have a plan? Those are direct questions, and that's okay to ask.
Wow. Okay. This is really good information. And again, for anyone listening, if you can think of anyone who may need to hear this, definitely share this episode, because this is really great information. So Qiana, what role do you feel that, or do you have anything to add, I should say, because we've kind of gone through it, but what role do you feel like the parents should play in their children seeking mental health treatment?
I mean, it's a very vital role. One of the major issues that I found in working with youth is when we go to have the family sessions, or even when I'm just talking to the youth themselves, the issue is the breakdown of communication between them and the parents, and the parents' lack of awareness of what's going on with their child, because they don't really talk to them. They're focused on, oh, I'm busy. I have a very rigorous work schedule. When I get home, I'm tired. So they don't take that extra time to just sit with their child on a daily basis, just to say, hey, how was your day? What happened to you today? To even pick up on, things that may be going on with them, learning how to read in between the lines of when your kid, is talking to you about certain things, when they're sharing things about what they're seeing and hearing at school, and you being able to know how to kind of dig deeper to find out, are you part of that? Is that something you're curious about doing or trying? Have you tried it? And so I've always had a very strong open communication with my daughters, but I'll be honest, when I really start having certain engagements in the mental behavior field, I really start changing some of the questions and conversations that I would have with my daughters. And the importance of being direct is very, very accurate, because I did finally start becoming more direct with my daughters and asking them, are you feeling anxious? Have you ever had suicidal thoughts? Are you doing drugs? Have you ever thought about it? Is there someone in your friend circle that's doing that? Like, I had to become more direct as well. And in that, having conversations with them on what to do when, you do find yourself encountering certain issues or things that even your friends or classmates. And thankfully, my children listen, because there are a couple of times they actually saved a couple of their classmates' lives, because their classmate would confide in them about suicidal thoughts or abuse in the home, and they knew to go take it to, the counselor at the school, and things started rolling as far as investigations and things like that. So I was like, okay, good. But the more direct you are with your children about those types of subject matters, you may think they're not listening or paying attention, but they really are. So it is very important for parents to, have those conversations. And then if your child says, I would like to see a therapist, schedule them an appointment. Don't just say, well, I don't think it's anything wrong with you, or you're not going through anything serious enough to do that. Like, schedule them an appointment, allow them to have that experience. And then they can kind of even probably guide you on if they want to continue therapy, or if they don't like that particular therapist, but they want to, try someone else. So it is important for parents to become more proactive in taking the lead of the care of their child's mental health wellness.
Great information and advice. And as Stephanie was saying, we really just parents don't know what we don't know, right? And so, I think it's great that we're having this conversation, and that's what needs to happen, just more conversation about this topic. So if each of you, if you could, just what would you leave our audience with in this conversation today? Something that you think is just very important, that you want to be the last thing, that they remember or think about from this conversation. And I'll start with you, Qiana.
Well, I would say to start with our parents, like I said, talk to your child, start having more regular day-to-day conversations, doing check-ins. A 15-minute conversation, just asking your child how their day is going, goes a long way. Because like I said, if you start to have that engagement with them, you'd be surprised how candid sometimes your kids will be in sharing what's going on in their schools, their classrooms, among their circles, their friends circles. They may not tell you every little thing, but if you develop that comfort of exchange, they will become more open to talking and disclosing information. For our youth, don't be afraid to ask for help. Even if you are afraid to go to your parents in the beginning, at least go to your school counselor to seek guidance on how should I ask my parents for help, or, that I would like to see a therapist, or I think it's something going on with me and I'm not really sure how to, identify it. Can you help? But being able to talk to someone other than just your friends, because your friends can help a little bit, but they may not be able to tap into, ask, telling you exactly what's wrong. And, understanding that, yes, the National Suicide Hotline is available to everybody. So even if you're having suicidal thoughts, call the line, so that they can at least give you some guidance on what to do next in doing assessment, but understanding that you're not alone in that, what you're going through, what you may be experiencing, it, in a sense, is normal responses to anything traumatic that you may have experienced. But it's okay to get help. It's okay to seek help and get support for you to overcome those challenges.
Thank you so much, Qiana. And Stephanie, anything you want to leave our audience with?
Yes. I would say, for like in the perspective of youth, I would tell them to just figure out who you are. I mean, that's such an essential thing at this age, and drop who others think you are. I think also, if you need help or something happened to you, tell a trusted adult. Like Qiana said, not every kid, and even sometimes adults, know how to respond to this. So definitely tell a trusted adult. And if they don't really seem to be receptive to how you feel, if you're feeling you're in crisis, reach out to another adult. It's okay. Don't go by the first response. I would say also, you're just not alone. Doing the presentations with my co-presenters, we might have totally different background stories, right? But that raw emotion that we have experienced through our lives is all the same. That, just the sadnesses of feeling that we are alone when we're not is really difficult. I would also say, if you are struggling, don't do it alone. Seek help and learn how much you matter. And also, if you have gotten help, don't give up. Life is like there's so many curveballs, because I would say in my life journey, I've had my first trauma, and then I've had my second trauma and my third trauma, right? It can be a continual thing, and there's different things that happen in our lives. But they're like curveballs, and they make you really dizzy. And but eventually they'll all swing through. They will end, and you just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and it's just really important to, no matter what, I'm going to do a baseball reference, sorry, but get to that base, and you can limp, you can walk, you can run, because the umpire's already called for you to walk, so you can go at any pace you need to. Finally, no matter what stage in your life or recovery, continue to be active. I have to say, no matter what in my life, I don't have to be working. I can be volunteering, and that's actually my phase of life right now. And there's so many places to connect to as a youth or adult. NAMI has things for adults, but there's plenty of nonprofits and nursing homes who want people to help them. And I would just say, my favorite quote is from Rumi. It's you see my descent, now watch my rising. And I think it's so important for individuals that who experience like difficulties. You feel like such a failure all the time. And it's good to know that you're not, and you might be in the ashes in the moment, but you can work to that rising. And I feel like, it's the symbolism of a phoenix is so important, and just show these people how far you can come.
Excellent. And last but not least, Kerry, anything you want to leave with our audience?
Absolutely. I think that we all as a community have a responsibility to work to reduce stigma. And so, echoing what Stephani said, and that you're not alone, chances are, someone with a mental health condition. When you're talking about 1 in 5, it's all around us, right? And so understanding as a community that this is not a moral failing, that individuals with a mental health condition didn't do anything to cause this to themselves. And that really, while we most of us lack the education to be crisis counselors or social workers or psychiatrists, the thing that we like to say at NAMI is that listening is one of the best ways that you can help someone with a mental health condition. And so if nothing else that you take away, it is to, in your work to destigmatize, is to just listen to your family, listen to your kids, listen to your peers, your coworkers. We're taught so much just to respond, right? Someone is telling us their story, to provide a response, or they seem like they're questioning something. Tell them what to do. Go to a psychiatrist. Go get help. And oftentimes, really, if you just sit back and listen, that's the help that individual needs. And especially with our youth, they're really looking for someone to listen to them. And so if you can, as a parent, if you're not sure what else to do, the best thing you can do is really listen. Just sit back and listen to your child.
Absolutely. I want to really thank each of you for joining me today. Ladies, you have definitely shared a wealth of information and just your knowledge and your experiences today. And I really pray that someone is blessed by this show and encouraged by what they have heard today. I do want to give some information. So for NAMI, Metropolitan Baltimore, you can call their helpline, email, visit their website to register for a support group. For Qiana Howell, her contact information is here as well. You can make note of that. Reach out to Empowered to Heal if you want some therapy, counseling. And really important, if you know someone that you think may be contemplating suicide, there is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline that is available to them. And so definitely take note of that information, or if you need that yourself, there is someone there 24 hours a day that can assist you. And also, if there is something that happens, there's the Baltimore Crisis Response Unit as well. But they have a 24-hour hotline, and their number is here as well. And so, make sure that you are taking care of yourself if you are experiencing any issues. So once again, everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been an amazing episode. And I'm actually going to play a video from NAMI just so that you can hear a little more about the services that they will or that they can provide.
Thank you for taking a moment to listen and learn about NAMI Metro Baltimore and the free mental health resources we provide to our community. We are the Baltimore affiliate of the nation's largest grassroots mental health nonprofit and serve the 1 in 5 Baltimoreans with a mental health condition and their families so that they can lead their lives with dignity and the support that they need. We offer mental health support in many ways. If you call our helpline on weekdays from 9 to 5, a member of our team will be ready to help connect you to resources here in the community. We also provide educational presentations to workplaces, schools, and even faith leaders to end stigma around mental health. Our volunteers share their personal experiences so audience members can empathize and maybe someday even feel emboldened to share their own stories. Every February, we participate with NAMI Maryland at Advocacy Day in Annapolis to urge senators and local representatives to support policies that can help people impacted by mental illness. We also offer free weekly support groups so that people living with a mental health condition and their families can gain support from others with similar experiences. We use a peer-based model for all of our programs, and our peer-to-peer and family-to-family classes teach participants about coping mechanisms, problem-solving skills, and mindfulness techniques that will help them in their journeys towards recovery. Our classes are totally free and online too. Here at NAMI Metropolitan Baltimore, we believe that nobody should feel alone in their journey with a mental health condition. We're here in your corner. So what are you waiting for? You can connect with us and join our community by calling our helpline, emailing us, or by visiting our website at www.namibaltimore.org to register for an online support group. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, this has been an amazing episode, and I'm so glad to have been joined by my guest today, Kerry Graves, Executive Director of NAMI Metropolitan Baltimore, Qiana Howell, therapist and founder of Empowered to Heal, and our special guest, Stephani Schaffer. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Remember to take care of yourselves and each other. And until next time, join us every second and fourth Friday at 6 p.m. Until then, stay boss.